You know, in the world of biotech manufacturing, something huge is happening right now. A seismic shift. When you look at the latest data, you see the industry isn't one big happy family anymore. It's splitting apart. We're calling it the Great Decoupling. And this split is fundamentally changing who wins, who loses, and how the medicines that save our lives actually get made.
For the longest time, the thinking was pretty simple. Scale is king, right? The more factories, the bigger the capacity, the better. But all this new data is forcing us to ask a really important question. Is bigger always better? Or is there another way to win this game?
And it turns out the answer is a big, resounding no. The old rules just don't apply anymore. We are absolutely witnessing a great decoupling. The market is splitting into two very different but equally successful paths. It's forcing everyone to pick a side.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds here. At the very heart of this split is a battle. It's an efficiency war being fought between two philosophies, pure brute force scale versus super high value margin. It's a classic clash of business models, really. So think of it like this. On one side, you've got the titans of scale. These are the giants, and they're winning by building these enormous automated factories that just pump out product, driving down the cost of every single thing they make. But on the other side, you've got the masters of margin. These guys are smaller, more specialized, and they're winning with unique technology that nobody else has, which lets them charge a serious premium. And wow, the numbers really tell the story here. I mean, just look at Samsung Bio, a titan of scale. They're pulling in about $675,000 in revenue for every single employee. That's just insane efficiency. Now, compare that to a master of margin like Biocytogen. Yeah, their revenue per employee is lower, but look at their gross margin, almost 76%. That is just staggering. They're squeezing so much more value out of every sale. And then you see the traditional players like WuXi kind of stuck in the middle, struggling to compete on either scale or value. This chart just says it all, doesn't it? That margin gap is a chasm. Biocytogen isn't just a little bit more profitable. They're playing a completely different sport. This is a perfect picture of what true pricing power looks like. When you have something so unique that customers will pay top dollar. Even a super efficient giant like Samsung can't touch that kind of margin. So let's zoom in on that Titan strategy for a second. Samsung Biologics is the absolute poster child for going big. They have the largest capacity on the planet, almost 800,000 liters, and they're not stopping. Plant 5 just came online, adding another massive chunk. By just focusing on these huge, late-stage commercial projects, they can keep their automated facilities running 24/7, which is how they get to that unbelievable revenue per employee number. And it's not just about raw size either. Giants like Lonza are smart. They position themselves as these critical, can't-live-without-them partners. This quote from their latest report says it all. They're not just renting out factory space. No. They're selling certainty. They're selling a de-risked end-to-end path from the lab to the pharmacy. That's their value. So you're probably wondering, right? If you can't compete with a factory the size of a small town, how do you even survive? Well, the masters of margin aren't fighting with size. They're fighting with a completely different weapon, an unbeatable edge in innovation. The secret to their success is something called a technical moat. Now, you've heard of a moat around a castle, right? It's the same idea. It's a competitive advantage that comes from technology or expertise that is just so hard for anyone else to copy that it basically lets you set your own prices. And Biocytogen is the perfect example of this. Their technical moat is their Ren mice platform. And here's the absolute genius of it. They're not just a service company billing by the hour. No, they are literally creating and then selling or licensing their own intellectual property, in this case, high-value antibody molecules. This model just completely shatters the old way of doing things, and it is exactly why they have that mind-blowing 76% margin. And this isn't a one-off fluke either. You can see other companies building their own moats right now. Take CoreStem Chemon. They're taking their deep knowledge in stem cells and building these incredible organ-on-a-chip platforms. This lets them offer next-gen testing that doesn't rely on animals, which, as you can imagine, is a hugely valuable niche to own in the preclinical world. So at the end of the day, whether you get there through the brute force of a massive factory or the elegant precision of a unique technology, this is what it's all for. It's about making these unbelievably complex, incredibly valuable biologic drugs. And what we're seeing is that both the titans of scale and the masters of margin have found very different, but very powerful, ways to win in the space. All right, so let's land the plane. What does this great decoupling actually mean? Why should you care?
We've boiled it all down to 3 critical takeaways for anyone involved in the global supply chain. First up, and this is huge, in today's world, with all the geopolitical uncertainty, dual sourcing is no longer a nice-to-have, it's a must-have. Big pharma simply cannot risk having their entire supply chain in one place. They need partners in different regions, which is great news for both the global giants and the specialized local players who can guarantee that supply. Second, and this really brings it all home, your moat is your best defense, period. In a world with giants, having that deep technical moat in a niche area is your shield. It stops you from becoming just another commodity. We see it with companies focused on peptides, and we definitely see it with BioCytogen's antibody discovery platform. Specialization is what gives you lasting pricing power. And finally, takeaway number 3 is more of a warning. The middle is getting absolutely crushed. If you don't have the massive scale of a titan, and you don't have the unique technical moat of a specialist, you are in a very tough spot. The traditional labor-intensive companies are going to find it almost impossible to compete on price with the giants or on value with the innovators. So there you have it. The data is clear. 2 distinct paths to victory are being carved out in this great decoupling. And it leaves one final question for everyone in this industry and for all of us watching it. In this new landscape, would you rather be a giant or a giant slayer?